Well, I'm delighted to be joined by Matthew Heineman on the podcast here on jasonsolomons.com. We've spoken to him before about Cartel Land, his Oscar-nominated documentary about the drug wars in Mexico. This is a very different war that he enters at this time in City of Ghosts, a brilliant documentary. Matt, congratulations on that. Tell me how you became attracted to the story of citizen journalists resisting ISIS in Raqqa.
Yeah, I mean, I think intellectually I was really fascinated by this sort of war of ideas, this war of propaganda between ISIS's, slick Hollywood-style videos on one hand, and RBSS, Rockets Being Slaughtered Silently, trying to counter this narrative with the reality of the horrors of what's happening in their hometown of Raqqa. And this sort of social media battle, this media battle between these two groups, was what initially drew me to make this film.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's our only. The war in Syria feels so distant. It constantly rumbles on the headlines, on our news, but it feels like it's far away, and that it doesn't touch us. But when you see your doc, I mean, it touches all of our lives in some way. You end up thinking, well, what if this were me? How would I react?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the goal of the films that I'm trying to make, at least, is really put you right in the middle of the action and sort of force you not just to sort of walk out of the theater and chuck your popcorn in the trash and sort of let it leave you. I really want you to sort of feel like you've gone on this journey, feel like you've gone to Syria, feel like you've gone to the safe houses with these guys as they've been forced to escape, and viscerally kind of shake you into sort of really feeling it, as opposed to just sort of experiencing and then forgetting about it.
Is that what you did? You did all that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it shook me. It changed me forever. And I think I was astounded by this group and the bravery that through which they've really stood up against all odds, despite having lost family members and colleagues and friends, to shed light on dark corners of the world that we would otherwise not know about.
What motivates them? I mean, we see them, and they're a disparate group, and they're friends. They're middle class, I think they call themselves at one point, doctors, lawyers, scientists, who are having fun, and one of them says, I was forced to grow up very quickly. I mean, they're not trained journalists, if you like, but what they're doing is more urgent. I've been a journalist for 25 years. I've never put a story like that up. That's those are pretty strong images that they post of criminality, brutality, violence, thuggery, illegality, that one would never assume could be allowed to happen, and yet without them we perhaps wouldn't know about it.
They're all motivated by different things, obviously. It's a group of individuals. I think obviously what draws them together is this strong belief that the world needs to know what's happening. And I think we as traditional journalists and we as citizens are relying more and more on citizen journalists to tell these stories. As sort of foreign bureaus are shrinking and there's less and less money in investigative journalism, we're not sending correspondents to these extraordinarily dangerous places anymore. And so I think to some degree this film is an homage to journalism. It's an homage to the importance of fighting for the truth and seeking out the truth, especially in a world where truth seems to be malleable, especially in the U.S. and I think probably here as well. We're living in an era of quote unquote fake news, and so again I think the film is partially an homage to individuals who are risking their lives to fight for the truth.
I mean, your film sort of is about propaganda. You look at the ISIS videos, which are Hollywood style made, big production values. They disseminate some propaganda, and then the RBSS group that you follow, they expose executions, beheadings, lynchings, in a way, public shamings, children being recruited in the streets, bombed out buildings. They recognise their own street at one point in a very moving sequence when they said, well, we live just there, that's our house, and it's like it's a bomb site now. Are they motivated in some sense by they want to go home? Are they patriots? I mean, can you be a patriot in Syria when you've been torn by the Assad regime and then by this other sort of people that come into the vacuum? Where do they see themselves now? What do they want? Do they want to go home?
Of course, they want nothing more than to go home. They are Syrians who believe in Syria and want a, peaceful and free Syrian state. I think they're also realists and realize that, that dream is perhaps quite far away. And unfortunately, currently, as we speak, there's a series of a lot of not great options on how to fix this. And it's human nature. I get this question at every Q&A. How do you fix this problem? People want to just sort of pull a lever or drop a bomb or, enact a piece of legislation, and that's suddenly going to fix the problem. Syria is an extraordinarily complex situation. It's a multifactorial problem, and it's going to require multifactorial solutions that aren't going to happen overnight.
And a film like yours draws attention to that thing. I don't think you're a filmmaker. You're not going to be solving problems, but we now see the problems and see the different kind of shards of humanity that make up this kind of prismatic situation that we've got. Was it difficult to remain? I mean, you do remain apolitical. I call it as apolitical as you can be, because politics is always personal. But you are in no doubt also. Unlike a news broadcast, you're in no doubt about the anger that these people at least feel towards ISIS and their methods and their worrying, troubling methods that are disseminating around the world. Was it a decision of you editorials to say, well, I've got to show this. This is how I feel, or did you have to sort of remain balanced? Did you feel a sort of kind of loyalty to your journalistic instincts?
Yeah, I don't even know if I'd call myself a journalist, or I don't know what I am. I guess a storyteller. Mm-hmm. I don't even know what balance would necessarily mean in the situation. I wasn't going to call up ISIS and ask for their opinion necessarily on the situation. I was telling a very human story about a group of individuals, standing up to expose the atrocities of ISIS, and that was my story.
Did you get close to them? I mean, you got close to them physically. I can see because you've got footage of them. Yeah. Did you get close to them as as interviewees, as subjects, as friends? What was the situation that they allowed your embeddedness, for want of a much better word, to exist?
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, I think for the types of films that I make and that I want to make they're very intimate. They're very visceral, and that sort of intimacy doesn't happen just by sort of knocking on their door and hanging out with them for, lunch or something. It happens through weeks and weeks and months of relationship building, of rapport building, of trust building, and ultimately becoming part of the fabric of their daily lives. It's still a filmmaker subject relationship. But clearly, I had a connection with these guys, and I have a connection with these guys, and that allowed me to get scenes like I don't want to give away the end of the movie, but there's a very obviously intimate scene at the end of the film in which one of our main characters sort of lays himself bare, and again that was probably the most difficult thing I've ever had to film in my life.
Yeah. How did you gain their trust? I don't give away the journalistic secrets, and you've got a nice face, of course. Why wouldn't you take this boy in? But what did you show them? Cartel Land. Say, look, this is what I did with these guys. Was that helpful as a calling card in some way to them? Because it's helpful as a calling card in the industry. Maybe you'll get some funding, but actually, that your film is nothing without the trust of this group.
Yeah, I mean, I think undoubtedly when I started. They watched before they decided to move forward. I can't remember where they watched the trailer, they watched Cartel Land, but it was a huge help in getting the initial access with them. They'd known that I'd sort of been through my own sort of violent journey, and that I empathized. Obviously, too much. What they've been through is far more than what I've ever been through, obviously. But we could connect on that. And then again, I think it's time. I spent so much time with them that they knew that I was doing everything possible to try to get their story right, and that that was key. And I think transparency is also key. Being transparent with my intentions, being transparent that I am trying to be apolitical, that I don't have an agenda, that I'm not following a script, and I want the story to go wherever it goes naturally. And
So how long? What were the technical aspects? What camera were you using? Did you have a crew with you? Was it just you? And how long did you spend? Was it in Turkey, Germany with them?
It's on and off for a year. I had a very small crew. Most oftentimes, I'd be during the actual filming, I'd be alone with them in the room. You know, and you know, it's a very difficult journey. You know, there are a few shoots that I wasn't able to be on, and you know, had a few filmmaker friends that were able to sort of step in. But it was, you know, it was quite a journey.
Would they sort of let you know, well, I'm doing this today, I've got this meeting, we're going to upload, we've got some stuff that you want to be there while we upload it to get the sort of excitement of it in a way?
I mean, that was the hardest part, really. It was by far the hardest film I had to make for two reasons. One, sort of just the logistics of filming, the sort of when and where and how, you know, and a lot of it was taking place in these smoky safe houses. And so that was the second challenge of how to make what for the most part is a bunch of guys, you know, sitting around behind computers and cell phones in a smoky room, a smoky safe house.
They do like a cigarette, that lot.
They smoke a lot of cigarettes for sure. I've never smoked a cigarette, but I feel like I've you know, now addicted. So trying to find the cinema in that, trying to find the drama, trying to find the humanity, that, you know, as a filmmaker, that was my biggest challenge.
There's an urgency to it as well. You can't say, well, I'm going to sit away and edit and craft away this beautiful contemplative piece. You need to get it out there. The story is urgent and now and vital.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, I think fortunately or unfortunately, fortunately for the film and unfortunately for Syria, the film has not lost any relevancy from when it premiered at Sundance to when it's being released, you know, right now.
Were you able to, I mean, have things changed? Have sands shifted politically since then? Have you know, even on a human scale, have your characters had their lives changed? And could you fit that in between the movie? And or is there a plan to follow it up? As always with docs, you know, the story doesn't end when the film stops.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, as you make more films and as you get a little bit older, you sort of, it's always that perpetual question of when to stop. You know, when you stop filming. Sometimes it's money. But I think for me, I knew that there's sort of two big arcs that were happening in the film. One, the exodus away from Raqqa, ultimately landing in Europe. And then two, it was sort of the emotional arc of the characters I was following. And so once I got this very key scene at the end of the film, I knew that my sort of emotional arc had been completed, and you know, I was that was the beginning of the end of filming. As far as what's happened since it premiered at Sundance, sure, there's been some geopolitical things that have changed. You know, there's currently a ground battle to oust ISIS from Raqqa, but as we've talked about, this is not an analytical film about sort of how we got to this place and sort of, you know, using professors or politicians to sort of explain what's happening in Syria or sort of to plot a path forward. It's really trying to put a human face to the subject.
Having spent so much time with these humans, what would you wish for them, just as a mate, as a friend of theirs? What would you wish to happen?
I mean, I hope they all stay alive, obviously. I hope they continue to do their important work. And I hope nothing bad happens to them, obviously. You know, they're still in danger. They're still being threatened, and you know, I think this battle against extremism, this battle against the perversion of their religion, this battle against, you know, the ideology of ISIS continues and will continue for years to come. And so, unfortunately, I don't think they're going to be out of a job anytime soon.
They certainly made some noise about how silently we were receiving it. I assume there's an irony in their choice of title, because the silently is presumably the world's reaction, which is born out of ignorance. And you can just turn your phone off sometimes as well, or put it on silent, and you know, that's what you can do with this stuff.
When the film was being released at Sundance, it was right around when Aleppo was getting shelled, and you know, that photo of the young boy in the back of an ambulance, which you may or may not have seen, and so many people came up to me and said, you know, can you believe what happened in Aleppo today? And I was just like, can you believe what's been happening in Aleppo every single day for the past 6 years? It's so easy to disattach ourselves from these conflicts because they feel like another world. It feels like another place. It feels, it's so hard to grasp when you walk out into the sort of gilded streets of London. It literally feels like another planet, but it's not.
No.
And we're all
sometimes it's brought crystal clear that it's not, that the battle is pretty close at hand. Right. Your film certainly does that with an extraordinary vivid portrayal of people under this cloud, under this threat. It scared me, I have to say. It scared me and worried me in a good way. There's hope though, because we have to fight these things, and as journalists and as citizen journalists and as filmmakers, you can contribute to the debate and hopefully make it less silent. Matt Heineman, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.